Okay, here is the top of the board. Using that electric sander there to even up the color and smoothen it out. Normally we just use a hand block with sandpaper, rough sandpaper, and smoothen these out. But this particular board is very stubborn to sand. It's like working with stone. Even that sander has trouble ripping it down. But it's just about finished now. We'll go over it with a higher grit sandpaper with a big block later. But the color's evening up. I added 2 big shims in this front part. One starts right there and goes all the way to the end. Needs a little more sanding there to get rid of that darkish color. And the other one starts right there. We'll sand that a little more too. That will go away. And I think it went to around here. Can't really see it anymore. Oh, to right there. It was a long one. But the top is looking good now. Nice and smooth. We got our plugs there. I think 36 plugs. There's the ribs. This whole board shrank a little more than we wanted it to. We didn't think it would shrink quite as much as it did. It's not a problem though. This doesn't scare us. It will be totally fine once it's glued in the case, and you'll see that very soon. Here's the soundboard sitting in the case. It has been thoroughly sanded. There's no finish on it yet. Right now I am making these thin wooden protectors to protect the board when we press it in so it doesn't get dented. They'll be covered in paper. We have a bunch left over from previous soundboards that we pressed in. This is a very big piano, so I need to make some more. You can see over here some of the ribs. If I press this, it's a little dark. See, they do fit in the slots. Some of them are a little bit off. We'll trim a tiny bit of wood off, and then they just fall right into where they need to be. Or if it's good, we could have used a little shim, maybe here, a spacer to expand it, but that's okay. This is a very big glue joint, so that's no problem. We could put a little piece of wood in there, so if you ever look down right here through the past the plate, you will not be able to see that. Okay, I just quickly clamped the board in here. The board is pressed down onto the rim now, and we can go under the case. Carefully. Check out this rim, how thick that is. Super rim. But the purpose of clamping the board in is we can see that our ribs do indeed fall into the slots. It's hard to get the angle down here, but that one right there is the worst one. It's just barely off and crushed aside like 1 millimeter or half a millimeter. I don't think I can easily maneuver around, but all the ribs are in the slots like that, all around the case. It's very good. We did a pretty good job putting these back to where they were. So now we know that the ribs fit, and we can take the board back out and prepare to ready the board for the bridge. Okay, on the other side of the piano, I have my light bulb here, and we can see that the ribs in the cutoff bar fit very good. I have just light pressure, so there's a little space there on the clamps. You can see the ones in there. Those fit in the slots nice. These ones in the way corner, those look good. These ones along the edge are good. It's hard to see, there's so much stuff under here, big beams hitting my head. But now we can take the board out and see where the ribs were getting crushed against the case, if any were. And we can trim off a little bit of wood, and then the board will fit perfectly. And then we can start putting the bridge on. Just took the soundboard out, and this one, you can see that one was rubbing against the rim, so you can just take a little chisel and just chisel a little bit off there, and then that will fit very good. Everything else is looking good. I noticed one over here had the same problem, a little tiny bit. Just scrape a little bit there with the chisel. Maybe this one, that one might, yeah, I could just do a little scrape there. Everything else, oh, these two here, it's just so small on the edge. You can see the wood is kind of chewed up, this one too, from being pressed into the case. So to scrape away some of that excess wood we have, and it looks like this board will fit right back in, no problem. So we can flip it over and prepare the face for the bridge. Okay, I chiseled off some of the ribbed wood that was hitting the case on some of these. They should fit in good now, and I cut up some 2x4s and taped them under the bridge. That is going to be the support for the bridge when we press the bridge onto the board, because if those were not there, the board would be bowed and it would be springy and it wouldn't be very solid to clamp against. So hopefully these will sit flat on the table when we have this whole thing flipped over, and then we put the bridge on. It should be nice and solid. So I'll flip this over and we can start fitting the bridge to the top. Here's the soundboard with the bridge getting glued on. We glued this on a little while ago. There's only a few pressure points, that's all it needed. We have protective pine here to protect the pins. This was very difficult to set up. That bridge is curved to match the curve of the soundboard. Quite a bit of curve. We have a plank in there that matches the curve and shims to help it be in the shape when we press it down. That was annoying to set up, but it's good now. You can see there's no spaces anywhere. Nice contact with the board all the way down. So we'll wait for this to dry, and tomorrow we can go after this piece. The base section is not glued on. It would have been very difficult to glue the entire bridge at once. Like this piece, there's a line here. I outlined where it should be. This should be there. Pull it almost half an inch. This piece warped or shrank inwards, twisted. So we need to straighten that out before we glue it. That should be easy. Just put a piece of wood from here to here, open this up a little bit. But we decided not to glue it all at once. It would have just been too difficult. On the end here we have a space from here to here that does not touch the soundboard, so that's good. We can just put glue from here to the end and we'll be totally fine. Here's the base section. It is now glued on. We have a different clamping setup this time. This worked better. 6 big steel beams squeezing that bridge on the board. It's nice contact with the board. That should be nice and dry now too. That was done yesterday, so we can take all these clamps off and put the board in the case and see how it fits. Remember, this was all dark. I sanded everything, all this inner rim, lightened the color up, removed all the stains. Now I'm putting a light coat of shellac on everything here. Brightens it up. It will help protect the wood. Very hard wood. It's a good time to do it. There's no soundboard in here yet. Everything's easily reached. And later we will black the edges of these beams. We tightened up the tension resonator. Nice and solid, firm. If any of these are loose, it makes a horrible rattle, so that's good. And might as well check these screws now that the soundboard's out. That one turned a little. They usually turn a little bit. That one's tight. These seem fine. I think this is the last step of prep work for the soundboard. We just had the soundboard in the case and it fits very good. That's a good thing. The next step is to clean up these buttons, put some new finish on them, and reattach them to the board. Got the nice square ones. Let's go down here. We have dowels for these, drill bit the right size, pack of old dowels there. We'll clean up these screws, dirty old screws, full of finish. So I'll clean these up and I'll be right back. Getting ready to strip these is the easiest way to take all this old finish off. And you can see this one has a chip in it. I think 3, maybe 4 have chips like that. We just replace these with buttons from our old box here. These are screws that match the buttons. These are all salvaged off of antique pianos. Mason and Hamlin junk. We even have the dowels. So all I have to do is find some buttons that match. That one's got a little chip, and just use these. Again, these are all probably 1900s or older. Some of them are a little newer. They look identical. They must have made billions of these buttons. So that looks like a good match. So I'll get a few of these and run these through the stripper, and we'll just put these on the Mason and Hamlin board. Put all these dowels in yesterday. They dried overnight, so now I can just easily cut these off flush with the rib face, sand them smooth a little bit, make sure there's no glue. Some of these dowels were drilled at strange angles, like these over here. That's the original angle of the hole that was in the bridge, or the rib. So we'll cut these off. The buttons are just about ready. The buttons go on last. The next step is to put some French polish on this bottom half. Back to the bottom half of the soundboard. We had it in the case and we marked all around the rim where the glue joint is, and we taped it off so we don't get any finish on here on our glue joint. So we taped this off and then we sanded the whole board again by hand with some rubber blocks too. It's nice and smooth. And now it's going to get the final polishing, and that should be it for the bottom half. There's our dowels in there, in the ribs, and the last thing to go on are the buttons. It's looking pretty good for a, I think, 90-year-old board. All original. Mostly original. Nice clean buttons. Easy to sand on the drill press. And a little bit of shellac, and they look very good.
They're very, very hard maple. Some of the troubles we have here is some of them are ovalized, they've shrunken, and they're not perfectly round, so that doesn't matter much, but sometimes you have a little trouble putting the screw in. Sometimes you have to take a tapered countersink and reshape the hole, but most of the time we don't. And if we bust one on the way out and crack it up, we have lots of them from salvage soundboards. There, see, now we'll let this dry, and after we glue them on the soundboard, put the finish on the soundboard first, and then we put these on. And then we give them a little brush like this again one more time. There, see, they look kind of pretty. Keeps them from getting dirty too in the course of putting them on the soundboard, and the glue doesn't really stick to the shellac, or penetrate the shellac rather, and we can just wash it off with a little water after, and the button doesn't suck up the moisture. So there we have it.
Here's the screws for the buttons. They still have old finish on there. This one looks a little rusty. These will get a gentle wire brushing to clean all the crud off, clean the slots out. They'll be nice and shiny, and then they will get some sanding. We will spin them on the drill press to make them nice and flat and have a nice design in the face of the screw. We'll show that next. Here's what they look like after the wire wheel. Nice clean metal. And up here we are sanding them. There's a screw in that chuck. Sanding the screw on that sandpaper. And once they're sanded, they come out looking like this. Nice, flat, shiny screw head. A little more.
But I think there's a space in there, right?
Yes, this is the floating
I gotta put something
end of the bridge.
I gotta put something to back it up so it doesn't shatter it all up. I need a little piece of wood.
You can see here, these are the original holes in the soundboard, and the bridge is down there. And since the panels floated around and shifted, they are no longer lined up. You can see just the very edge of a hole in there that's in the bridge. So we're going to need to drill a hole over here, like this one. It's tricky. You can also see we have a nice finish on here now. It's looking good. Should be ready to go into the case very soon. Here's some buttons. These are all salvaged off of antique soundboards. And in here we have dowels like this. The original dowels for this mason were destroyed when these were taken off. If we can find ones that fit. This one looks like it fits almost perfectly. It's already made. Antique dowel for our antique soundboard, maybe. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, here's one here.
There's a button ready to go.
Clean that up.
There's our hole. You can see the bridge down there. Looks good. Nice big button will hide that kind of ugly hole there. That's good. So these should be on next time you see this.
Buttons, some are discolored. That's usually from the iron and the screw that reacts with the tannin in the wood. Sometimes. Okay, this one goes here, this one goes here, and we did these 5. And see, there's no glue in these yet. They all have to be taken out. And we gotta put some glue under there. Yeah, we can leave it like that. Just put a little glue and screw them down. Same with these. These have been glued in already. So, there we have it. I think it's gonna go deep enough. Right there. Stops. Why we do a dry run, make sure everything fits right. Sometimes these little discs split in half if you over torque them. They're kind of, well, 100 years old, they're brittle. I don't think they're that old, 90 years old anyway. There's only 9 of them on here. Some have more. That's enough. And of course we'll wipe the glue up in a couple of minutes here as soon as we finish.
Here are the buttons a few days later. Nice buttons, nice screw heads, not all chewed up. Sometimes they're all real damage from somebody trying to take them out with a smaller screwdriver. That's actually not too common, because nobody really touches these buttons. But other screws in the piano are often chewed up. But these are good. Nice finish. 1930 board. It's just about ready to be glued back into the case. I still need to finish making these protectors. These will be on top of the board when we glue it in. We dry run clamp this first for sure. We can't have any mistakes when this is all full of glue and everything's warm. It needs to go smoothly. So we're going to prepare for that. Hopefully it will happen very soon.